Hello everyone, Douglas here and welcome to my Doctor Who review, and today I will be reviewing The Unicorn and the Wasp. This story is the first story to be a murder mystery, and this story has Agatha Christie. Our cold open scene begins, and we are at a house, and we hear the TARDIS lands, and we see the 10th Doctor played by David Tennant, and Donna played by Catherine Tate. We find out from the Doctors they landed in the 1920s. We are introduced to Professor Peach, played by Ian Berretti, Reeves, played by David Quittler, and Reverend Gutley, played by Tom Goodman Hill. We see the Doctor and Donna are watching, and we see Donna is excited, and we find out from the Doctor they haven't been invited. We see Professor Peach is looking at something in the library, and we hear a buzzing noise. And we see Professor Peach recognize the person, and we find out the murderer has a lead pipe, and we see the suspect changes into a giant wasp. We see the Doctor is back at the TARDIS, and Donna gets changed into a new outfit. We see the party is starting. We do get a cameo appearance of David Tennant's father, Alexander MacDonald. We are introduced to Lady Edison, played by Felicity Kendall. We hear Lady Edison mentions the unicorn is on the loose. And we find out a jewel thief, and nobody knows who he is. We also find out he snatched Lady Brightpen's pearls right under her nose. We are also introduced to Colonel Hugh, played by the late Christopher Benjamin, and you might remember him as Jago from the 4th Doctor story, The Talons of Rin Cheyenne. We are also introduced to Roger Kurbisi, played by Adam Rayner, and Rabana Whitman, played by Felicity Jones. We see Reverend Gottlieb is joining the party. We find out from Lady Edison that Reverend Gottlieb's church got broken into, and he apprehended the thieves. We are introduced to the legendary mystery writer Agatha Christie, played by Fennell Roger. I love Donna's reaction when she meets Agatha Christie. We see Roger is wondering where Professor Peach is at. We see the Doctor has a newspaper, and we find out the date is the day that Agatha Christie disappeared. We see a maid knocking on the library door, and she finds out Professor Peach has been murdered. We find out from the Doctor that Agatha just discovered her husband had an affair. I love the scene when we see every newspaper spinning, and we see the newspaper articles on Agatha's disappearance. We find out Agatha's disappearance is going to happen today. We see the maid is screaming murder. We see the Doctor is looking at Professor Peach's body. We see the Doctor is looking for clues. I love the Doctor's line when he says, Chief Inspector Smith from Scotland Yard, known as the Doctor. Miss Noble is the plucky young girl who helps me out. Funny line from Donna when she says this to the Doctor. I'll pluck you in a minute. We see the Doctor found morphic residue, and that's not supposed to exist. We find out from the Doctor it has left behind a returned species genetic immune code. The murderer is an alien. I like Donna's line when she says, I mean, that's like meeting Charles Dickens and he's surrounded by ghosts at Christmas. Hello, Donna. The Doctor was there when that happened. We see Donna mentions murder on the Orient Express, and Agatha overhears Donna. And I love Donna's line when she says this to Agatha. Copyright Donna Noble. Now I know that Donna wrote it. We find out the Doctor and Agatha will question the suspects, and Donna will look for clues. We see the Doctor is questioning Reverend Gottlieb, and we see a flashback of where Reverend Gottlieb was at, and he was unpacking his room. We see the Doctor is questioning Roger, and we see his flashback, and he was taking a stroll in the fields behind the house, and he was having an affair with one of the butlers. We see the doctor is questioning Rabana, and we find out Rabana was in the toilet when she arrived. And we see her flashback, and she was preparing herself. But she has a revolver. We see the doctor is questioning Colonel Hugh, and we see his flashback. He was in the study reading through some military manuals, and he was looking at something else. We see the doctor is questioning Lady Edison, and we see her flashback, and we see her in the blue room, and she was drinking tea, but in secret, she was drinking alcohol. If you look at the flashbacks, all of them were doing bad things, and that makes them look like the suspects. But except for one person, and that is Reverend Gottlieb, and it makes him less a suspect. We see the doctor and Agatha are talking, when the doctor was looking at the body, Agatha notices something in the fireplace, and it was a paper. And the doctor's trying to figure out the letter, and the letter is M. We see Donna is going into Lady Edison's room, and we find out from the butler it is locked. We see Donna tells the butler to open the door, and he does. We find out from the butler many years ago, Lady Edison returned from India with malaria. She locked herself in this room for 6 months until she recovered. Since then, the room has remained undisturbed. We find out from the butler that the room has been empty for 40 years. We see Donna knows the buzzing noise is coming from the window. We see Donna opens the curtain and we see the wasp, and it breaks through the window. We see Donna is calling for the doctor, and we see Donna is behind the broken window, and we see her use her magnifying glass as a weapon and uses the sun to burn the wasp, and it works. And Donna gets out of the room. We see Donna tells the doctor about the wasp. We see the doctor sees its sting, and we see the doctor enters the room and it's gone. We see the doctor is getting a sample from the sting. We see the maid remembers something, and she needs to talk to Lady Edison. And we see the maid is outside, and the statue falls and lands on her. We see her die, and her last words are, "The poor little child." We see the doctor, Donna, and Agatha go after the wasp, and it is getting in. We see the wasp is trying to sting someone, and they are trying to get it. We see the doctor says this, "Where are you? Come on, there's nowhere to run. Show yourself." We see everyone is coming out in a funny line from the doctor when he says, "Oh, that's just cheating." We see everyone is in the room. We see Donna and Agatha are talking, and Agatha notices something about the flower bed, and she found a box. We find out the box has tools in it. We see the butler brings drinks in, and there is something suspicious. We find out from the doctor that Vesper forms in the stain. Vesper forms have got hives and the Southrax galaxy. We find out from the doctor something's inhibiting his enzymes, and we find out he has been poisoned. We find out from Agatha the doctor drank sparkling cyanide. We see the doctor runs to the kitchen to detox himself. We find out the doctor needs a shock, and we see the doctor and Donna kiss, and he got the poison out. We see the doctor and Donna are having dinner with the suspects. We see the lightning strikes, and the candles blow out, and the buzzing noise is present. We see everyone is trying to run away, and we see the wasp. We see the doctor grabs the sword, and it is gone. We find out from Lady Edison her firestone is stolen. We find out Roger has been murdered with a knife. We find out from the doctor the wasp could wipe them out in seconds. So why playing this game? I like the doctor's line when he says, "I've called you all here on this endless night because we have a murderer in our midst." We see Agatha point at Rabana, and we find out she never met these people, and they never met her. We see Agatha presents the box of tools, and Rabana looks guilty when she drinks the wine. We get a flashback of Rabana disposing the evidence. We find out Rabana is the unicorn and she had the Firestone. So now, who is the Wasp? We see Agatha points at Colonel Hugh and we find out he was never paralyzed. We see Agatha points at Lady Edison and we find out she was pregnant while in India. And we find out from the doctor it was no ordinary pregnancy. We find out from the doctor back in the dining room when Lady Edison said, "No, it can't be." We find out from Lady Edison it was 40 years ago in the heart of Delhi, late one night. We get a flashback on what happened that night. We find out she fell in love with a man named Christopher. We find out Christopher was a wasp to learn about the humans. We find out Christopher died when the flood washed him away, and he gave her the Firestone. We find out Lady Edison is innocent. We find out from Lady Edison that she was in the library reading an Agatha Christie book. We see a flashback when Reverend Gottlieb's church got broken in. We find out from the doctor that Reverend Gottlieb is 40 years old, and Lady Edison realizes something. We see the doctor ask how old her child would be, and she says 40. And we find out Reverend Gottlieb is the son of Lady Edison. Big twist, am I right? We find out from the doctor the Firestone is no ordinary jewel. It's a Vesper-form telepathic recorder. It's a part of its brain. We see Reverend Gottlieb is changing into a wasp. We see Agatha is taking the Firestone away from the wasp, and the doctor and Donna go after her. We see Agatha is driving away, and the wasp goes after her. We see the doctor and Donna go after Agatha and the wasp. We see Agatha is going to the lake. We see Agatha is controlling the wasp. We see Donna grabs the Firestone and throws it in the lake, and the wasp goes after it. We see there is something wrong with Agatha, and it's the Firestone. It's part of the Vesper form's mind. We find out the wasp let her go and it is dead. We see the doctor and Donna are behind Agatha's mind lost. We see Agatha is at the Harrogate Hotel, and we see the doctor and Donna are watching her. We see the doctor and Donna are back at the TARDIS, and we see the doctor is looking for the Agatha Christie novel, Death in the Clouds, and she remembers. And we see the copyright page has 5 billion, and that is the end. I will say, this is a classic, and I do love this story. If you are fans of Agatha Christie and mysteries, you are going to get a kick out of this. I will say, this was a mystery with a sci-fi twist. This story does feel like Clue, or in Britain, Cluedo, because the story feels like The Game. The script by Gareth Roberts is great, and this story gets your mind thinking, and I will give The Unicorn and the Wasp a 10 out of 10. So that is my review of The Unicorn and the Wasp. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you next time for my review of Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead.